way. It's just, how you take advantage of whatever situation you're in. And again, because I went to school here, I ended up sticking around. Like I dropped out of Belmont. We can talk about that a little bit if you want to.
Cool.
Like 2013. Yeah. And I, stuck around because I was getting involved with assisting and interning a little bit around that time. I was beginning to do some more live shows and then began to tour officially, shortly thereafter. And so Nashville just seemed to be the place that I needed to stay to continue working, essentially. Like moving somewhere else for me would have just been, at that point, a step backward to kind of a reset, know, and I didn't really have... I mean, if I really wanted to, I probably could have, but I just didn't feel that I should, pick up, start over. It just seemed too hard. And again, it's Nashville. Like, why would you want to move away from Nashville unless you really felt like you needed to? And I just didn't have that feeling. Some people do.
I feel like Nashville's like the place to go.
Yeah. It's funny because, it's a very popular city in the U.S. Outside of music, it's a very busy tourist city now, and it gets lots of attention, and we have a lot of growing pains as a city. So it's actually been really interesting living here for 10 years now to kind of experience some of those just, municipal city things. And
I was actually talking with Sam Moses, who was on the previous episode of this podcast, about those things. I was like, wow, man, that sounds like Jerusalem. Like, trying to get a new light rail in, not succeeding, businesses getting upset, terrible public transportation, crowded roads, all that stuff. It sucks.
Yeah.
It's rough.
And it's a great city, and again, I don't know where else I would go, but it's difficult. And gosh, I'm not sure if you talked about this with Josh or Sam at all, but right now in Nashville, we are going through a thing with home studios technically not being able to operate under certain
I've heard about this.
Guidelines.
I've heard about this. We didn't speak about it, but yeah. Is that affected you?
Not really. And probably it hasn't affected too many people, but the issue is a relatively well-known home studio owner by the name of Lid Shaw was shut down by the city. I don't remember exactly what year. It's been a while now because it's been in litigation now for a while. So it's
crazy.
It's a huge, long thing.
He's got a podcast also.
He's got
a way bigger podcast than me.
Yeah.
Well, I'll put a link in the show notes. It's Home Studio Rockstars.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is.
Yeah.
Super
totally.
awesome. But anyway, and actually this week, in fact, we have another community meeting about finalizing some of the regulations, we'll call them, that home studios will hopefully be able to operate under a new bill that's being proposed for the city. So we're in progress of proposing a new bill with some, operating caveats, I guess I would say, for, home studios, but hopefully it won't be illegal anymore to service clients, in your home studio or any home business. This could be, a hairstylist. It could be a photographer at their home. Anything. It's not.
The law makes zero sense with the way the world works these days. Like the way small businesses work. We don't know what's the point of opening like a little shop on like a storefront. It's crazy.
Totally. And again, I understand. I don't think that small businesses should deserve a free pass in, being able to operate and things. Like I think, like any business, we have to be, given certain bounds to operate within. We can't just take advantage of everybody because we're in our houses. But we should be able to operate, I believe, within certain reasonable, neighborly guidelines. And that's the thing too, is like, we got neighbors all around us. I don't want my neighbors to disturb me, and I don't want to disturb my neighbors just the same. I try to be a good human. I don't know. Not everyone has that feeling, but under just those general human guidelines, it should. And for most of people, it's already working. And that was one of the big arguments. Like, this already exists in Nashville, and so it already is, in most cases,
it's
symbiotically working. Yeah. There's still some growing with it. We'll see what happens. I think the meeting's tomorrow, in fact. Yeah, tomorrow. So that'll be the next kind of big moment of what's going to transpire. But it's exciting. We'll see. It's a long time coming. It seems like we have the support of most of the city, too, like in terms of like the council members. But anyway.
That's awesome. I was going to ask you something. Oh, yeah. So why did you drop out of college?
Oh, yeah. Great question. A couple different reasons. I think most things in life, it's never based on one thing for most people. Reason number one, I had at that time started assisting and interning for a really awesome producer, artist, just general awesome guy, Dustin Burnett. And he was working with artists at the time, so I was kind of there with him in the studio as he was producing, doing his mix prep, setup, just trying to be helpful in things, as well as, just trying to pick up and learn stuff. But around that same time, he was launching That Sound Drums, and I kind of became the first intern for that company as well, and was editing all these drum samples that they were putting together for the launch of this company. And I kind of was doing both those things at the time, as well as going to school. And then I just kind of got really interested in doing this little internship, doing my own clients, being home, trying to like fiddle with my own home setup at the time, going to my audio classes still, of course, because that's a good idea. But the other classes became less important. And I definitely didn't show up for maybe a few too many of them, and failed a couple classes, which isn't good when you're trying to pass college. They generally frown on that. Makes it more difficult. And by it was all said and done, I was like getting to be like my third-ish year. I was already having to take summer classes, which are not easy, and they just drain your life away because you're having to go to school in the summer. And
I've been there,
I was
man.
I was gonna have to go then another year, even just another full year after that to graduate. And then Belmont's not cheap. That was gonna be more loans on my end. And I was just like, okay, I'm doing this. Like, I know a lot. I've got a couple things lined up. I don't think I need, and I just began to think, I was like, I don't think I need this anymore. I was trying to weigh the cost, value, like for like 6 months at least of just weighing back and forth of like what I was going to do, if I was going to try to like get my life in order to be like finish college, and do well there, or just say like, forget it. I'm focused on this. Let's just focus all of my energy on this and go with it. And that's what I ended up doing.
It's like you already like figured out this is what I want to do. So it's just about like doubling down on that.
Yeah. Yeah. And, because thankfully, I guess, or sometimes I almost wish there was a certificate saying I'm a certified audio engineer and I can run sound, because some people shouldn't be. But, anyway, I mean, yeah, you don't need an official degree, obviously, to work in this business. No. And yeah, I took that and was like, I'm just going to try to show people that I can do this. I'm going to be good at it. I want to invest time, energy, learning the craft, learning how to put together everything I can, just to, deliver a great product and a great mix that's pleasing and exciting and makes you feel something. I think that's like the biggest thing for me as a mixer is I use my ears, obviously, but a mix doesn't really sound like a mix to me until I begin to feel something. And I don't know if that's just me, but that's what I think kind of keeps me involved with music is, it makes me emotional. In a good way, hopefully, If it doesn't, then usually it's a rough day in the office. But
or you're listening to the wrong genre.
Yeah, that too. But yeah, so again, I'm just talking and I kind of lose my train of thought. But there you go.
It's totally cool. Yeah, so it actually leads me to the next question that I sort of addressed earlier. It was like, okay, so like you're into audio, you're chopping up these samples or whatever for these like these drum sample kits or whatever. How did you end up getting down the road of niching down into mixing, and why did you choose it?
It's a good question. I think it kind of stems back to way early on of just listening to a lot of music, and even guitar playing. Like I was teaching myself guitar, I was like mid high school. My aunt actually found a guitar in a trash can, gave it to me. I fixed it up, got new strings on new saddles, and like, I'm going to learn guitar. And so I was listening to, say, like a rock band, and like, okay, this riff is this, listen to that, try to go play it, listen to that. So I kind of developed a critical ear by trying to figure out all these guitar parts when I was in, early high school. And I just kind of got fascinated with how things are put together and the textures behind, the main things we hear with music. I think there's so much in songs that we maybe perceive but don't hear in a certain way. I think that's interesting. I think it's kind of fun to put little audio nuggets that are just very much a part of the sound but aren't a part of the vocal sound. I don't know. I just have fun with it. It's just a cool, creative thing. And I think the reason, again, you asked why I really niched down to it is I was not as pumped about producing. I liked being in the studio with artists and recording, but I never felt that I was the best person in the room at like directing, instrumentalist, on something very specific about what they were doing performance-wise in the technical sense, not necessarily like the emotional sense, because I think I can talk emotion in music pretty easily. But say like, hey, can you play this, C-sharp modular, whatever the heck? I was never amazing at that. I'm not saying you have to be really good at those things, but at least in Nashville, when there are a lot of folks that are really freaking amazing producers, to me it was a clear choice. Like, this is what I'm good at: engineering, mixing, putting things together, manipulating audio at a raw sense, and doing the touring thing as well. And let the producers kind of do that and form this great symbiotic relationship. And that's the one thing too, is like, obviously a lot of folks do a lot of things and produce, mix, edit, master their whole stuff. And I think that's awesome. I wish I had the talent to do that. In the same breath, though, I love being able to work with awesome producers who value mixers and they have a great working relationship with, because I think you can make really cool stuff that way, and arguably you can make better stuff that way, or at least have the benefit of having a second pair of ears and opinions that, again, that you value and trust.
I totally feel that. Yeah. I think some of my favorite working relationships are the relationships where like either like I'm the mixer and the producer is bringing me the tracks, and like we kind of like we'll work on it together, and like two heads will be better than one. You know what I mean? Like totally.
Plus, too, like, I mean, for at least what I do, I work primarily by myself at home. It's kind of lonely sometimes. Like, my manager's in LA. We talk frequently, but I've never really met my manager in a weird sense. I don't see a ton of folks that are clients here. Because it's against the law technically, and it's just for what I do, it's just not really necessary for many folks to come here unless they do like a mix sign off kind of a thing. So working with other people, I think, is a lot of fun because I don't get to do it very often. I don't have an office of coworkers where I can bounce ideas off of, or just even talk about whatever. It's a very weird work environment.
There's no water cooler or whatever people talk. I don't actually know anything about this either, obviously. So.
It's so funny because obviously I would really not like a job any different than this, but at the same time I almost wish I had certain benefits of, say, a regular person job has in terms of immediate office life community, And obviously even like some music management firms like have like an office management for their music firm, and that's cool, and they have office things there. But like for us, generally, again, we're freelancers. I think you're freelance too, right? Like totally just doing anything. Yeah. So it's just us really, and maybe a manager or somebody else, kind of helping you out. But really, it's not a whole lot.
Wow, that's wild. I want to ask you about management, actually. Let's just get into it now. I was going to ask you later, but so I noticed that you have management when we had our emails exchanged when I invited you on the show. So how did you get that set up, and what do you have them do for you exactly? Yeah,
it's a great question. Specifically with Scott, who's my current manager, Scott Waldman, I was without a manager for about a year. I just come off a previous relationship and needed to get back and kind of do some things myself for a while for a number of reasons. But again, kind of going back to the team effort thing, being your own freelancer, there's generally a lot of stuff to do sometimes, and I fully realize and recognize that I'm not the best at some things. I have my strengths, and I definitely and most certainly have my weaknesses. And the things that pull me away from my strengths just make me less good at what I'm trying to do. And so for me, kind of my philosophy is, wanting to at least consider management, or at least kind of, want to do it, is just having someone that can take over when you're trying to do a mix, something's going on that could be better handled by somebody else, that you can just stay focused on, again, the music. And that's the thing too, is I feel like a lot of times things can get hairy with some clients, when the creative side gets tied with like the business side.
Yeah.
It can get messy, and it can get messy obviously with it separated too, trust me.
I'm sure.
But I feel like some separation of, powers and duties can sometimes make things more clear and keep people focused on, again, I think what the most important thing is the music. And if there's a business issue, like, talk to my business guy, I just want to make good music.
That's
and so
awesome.
Scott helps with that. And
how do you find a manager? And do they have to like? Do they seek you out, or do they have? I'm sure they have to agree to take people. I feel like not everybody has a manager, right?
Yeah, and really not everybody should. And like honestly, I sometimes even wonder like, should I even have a manager? Obviously, I have one now, so I'm stuck with it. But again, Scott's great, so I'm not bashing him in any way. My first manager found me.